In West Africa, where I come from, there is a belief in mythical creatures, and they are called mermaids, but in West Africa, they're called Mami Wata. Yeah, I know, it sounds funny because I said Mami Wata, but that is what they're called. These creatures are not taken as fairy tales. They're taken quite seriously, and there are people that worship these things. We're going to go into some things that are being spoken about quite a lot recently, especially in West African theology. There's a whole theology on what you could call the marine kingdom.
When I was a little girl, I remember how my mother would leave bananas inside a small box every Friday. She would spend the night next to the river, near Mami Wata. My mother did not work. She did not have a job. But in the morning, all those bananas had turned into money.
One day I dey waka for beach. This day when I talk, everything just dey empty. All of a sudden, I notice say something there around me. I look my left near the water. That's why I see this lady. She dey fine well, with her long hair dey touch her bottom. She come dey waka go where the water dey wave. Each step when she dey take, me too come dey get confidence, say I dey follow am. I come dey go until the wave of the water come cover me. So I wake up, I can't see myself on top of sand. I can't see this one I dream. But the thing come to like I see it dey real. Though I still dey wear the same clothes the one I dey put on. But everything dey dry. I see water no even touch me. I can't get up, jeje. So I just continue with my own business. Immediately come be like say problem not dey again for my life. I can't dey on top of the wall. I don't forget everything when it happen for beach. But we can't get one time, I can't get this kind of dream about one woman when I see that day for beach. At times we go sleep together. At times we go dey talk. She promise say my life go dey beautiful. And I can't promise and say I go dey faithful. The thing can't dey like easy deal between me and her. My parents want me to marry. I can't talk to the woman when I see for dream. She said no problem. So I come marry. My wife dey beautiful too. But she no even find reach half of the woman when I see for the water. After 1 year and another year, we no get any pikin. We try many things. I can't get one day, I can't go one pastor. I can't explain my problem. He can ask me one question about the woman when I see for dream. How will him know this thing? I don't know. I can't tell her everything will happen. He can't tell me say the vow will go break him. That as him they look me, he see dark cloud cover all my head. I can't think about my new wife, my family, all the children who I done lost, and even the one who I dey find. How everything no even make sense if I no get them. No be the money, no be the car, no be anything. The woman for my dream again can't appear. And the last time when she go say, I go see him again be that. She said she go take everything when she don't give me. Before I go close my eye, make her open them, everything don't go. Plenty things, all of them just go fiam. If this one no be spiritual experience, waiting, call her.
And we want to look further abroad more than just the theology and look into science and research. And we also want to look at some of the occult stories and mythology behind all of this marine life, taboo marine life, which has been spoken about for centuries, that some are trying to deny. However, things have surfaced that are so bizarre that I think you need to pay attention. And maybe some of the things that people have been calling myth could very well be no longer myth, but actual fact. So the subject matter today is mermaids, reality or fiction? Let's find out. According to certain estimates, about 80% of the world's oceans remain unexplored. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, only about 25% of the ocean floor has been mapped. And with modern sonar technology as of the early 2020s, in terms of biological and ecological exploration, even less is known. Many species, ecosystems, and geological features remain completely undiscovered. The deep ocean, which makes up the vast majority of the ocean volume, is especially unexplored due to technological and logistic challenges. This lack of exploration means the ocean remains one of the least understood environments in the earth, less known in many ways than the surface of the moon or Mars.
In 1997, scientists from NOAA recorded a sound in the deep Pacific. It's thought to be organic in nature and has never been identified. It's called the bloop. In the early 2000s, it was proved that the Navy beached whales while testing sonar weapons. For years, the Navy denied that they were responsible for these beachings. These are facts. And in some of the incidents, there were reports of something else washing up with the whales. In 2004, two boys were the first to arrive on a mass whale beaching in Washington State. They captured it on a cell phone. The boys claim they saw something that day. They claim they saw a body. Took the remains of what the boys found. I know this because I was part of the team investigating that beaching and what the Navy did that day. And I believe I know what it is that they took. My name's Paul Robertson. I was a research assistant with Dr. McCormick, working at NOAA for several years by then. By the time we got there, the wind was so bad that it had driven everyone else off the beach, and a storm was coming in, so it was just us and the Navy. They'd cordoned off a section of beach, and there were guys in hazmat suits. It could have been biologists or medical staff, we weren't sure, but that got our attention. We have, NOAA has these arrays that record audio, marine life, seismic activity, and one of these boys was very close by. So we know it was likely that we had recorded the whole event. The sonar blast, the whale reactions, everything. Well, first there was the sound of the whale vocalizations, which we expected. And then there was what we now understand to be the priming of the sonar weapon. And then there was a moment of silence, and this proved to be the calm before the storm, because then it was bam. was pretty awful to listen to. Brian was so preoccupied with cataloging this sonic blast that he almost missed what else was there. There was another sound on the recording, an animal call, and we realized that this was a bloop signature, the same creature that Noah had recorded back in 1997. But in this case, our recording was much longer. It was the most complex, intricate animal call I had ever heard, and we had no idea what had made the sound. All we knew was that a creature that had only been heard once in human history had just resurfaced.
I've seen the footage that was supposedly taken in Beaufort. I don't know if that particular video is real or not. It doesn't really matter. The Navy keeps a tight grip on all classified information, but even they've come to realize that no matter what they do to prevent it, there will be occasional leaks. And when there is a leak, they've learned how to control it. It's no surprise that the Beaufort video was immediately branded a fake. The Navy tells us it's not real, so it's not real. Whenever a leak happens, the military has a way of using its influence to make the general public believe what they want them to believe. What I can't tell you is that I've seen a creature in the Navy's possession. We took it after the first test in Washington State. I was on the beach that day, but we weren't the first ones there.
In some of these events, not only were there reports of bodies being found, but something else. These had been reported before, not bodies, but spears. For years, deep-sea fishermen all over the world have found them. Found them in fish, caught in the open ocean. German news archives contain an interview with a fisherman who had his own experience with this strange phenomenon.
Mein Name ist Hans Bauer. Ich bin im Hafen von Sutridge aufgewachsen. Ich bin schon ein Fischer mein ganzes Leben. In den 70er Jahren aus Bremerhaven haben wir Kabeljau und Stockfisch aus der Baltische geholt. Wo wir am Aufwachsen waren, haben wir öfter so Geschichten gehört, komische Geschichten, auf was Leute in Fischen gefunden haben. Bloß, ich kam nicht daran. Ich musste warten, bis ich wirklich auf Tiefwasser in dem Bernhole war. Und da haben wir gefischt und da wurde ich plötzlich selbstbewusst darauf. Da haben wir gesehen, tote Fische. Fische mit Speeren in den Seiten. Davon habe ich schon viele gesehen. Auf einen Trip habe ich meine Kamera mitgebracht. Ich wollte Fotografien machen vom Walfischen für meinen Sohn. Auf denselben Trip, wo wir die Netze da rausbrachten. In einem Netz, da war was, hat sich so komisch bewegt und als wenn es so rausklettern wollte. Und ich bin ganz schnell gegangen, ich habe meine Kamera geholt und ich habe das Bild genommen. Ich glaube, hier ist was die Speere macht. Ich glaube, wir stören hier jemands Fischgebiet.
We continued to build profiles of these events, and we went over the one thing we did have, which was the recording. We listened to and analyzed this recording, I don't know how many times, and we made comparisons with whales and dolphins. But this thing, to our ears, sounded much more intricate, much more advanced. And we thought we had a reasonable chance to crack the code, but it was still beyond us. We needed help.
My name is Dr. Rodney Webster. I'm currently at the University of South Florida. I specialize in animal communications. I focus mainly on the field of cetacean vocalizations, dolphins and whales. A lot of what I do in my work is I search for signifiers, which are, particular sounds to which you can attach a meaning or a mood. You and I would refer to them as words. So they're words for dolphins. What's so interesting about the 2004 recording is that I could identify literally hundreds of signifiers and arrange these into recognizable patterns. We had not gathered this kind of information in the previous 30 years of studying dolphins and whales.
But that wasn't all that Dr. Webster found in their recording.
I noticed that there were some pitch changes in the bloop at certain parts of the recording, so I ran a spectrogram analysis of the data and in the frequencies that were above the range of human hearing, and this is what I found. This is it at original speed, with the whale sounds removed. I then slowed the recording down into the range of human hearing. Here it is at 1/3 of its original speed. Multiple individuals, literally thousands of different signifiers, at least half dozen individual voice prints. So what you see here is language. They're talking to one another.
If we could prove that this was a new species being affected, we figured that this might give us leverage, that we could compel the Navy to divulge what they're doing and possibly stop it. We had strong circumstantial evidence, but we would need more, and that's what the South African beaching gave us. What made this beaching stand out was that our South African colleagues had made a recording of their own.
My name is Dr. Gavin Dittmar. I am the head of acoustic research at the Marine Biology Research Center at the University of Cape Town. We had an underwater array just about a kilometer off the tip of Cape Town. And this was part of a research program to monitor whale populations at certain times of the year. That's why we contacted Dr. McCormick. We now believed that we had found the same thing.
When we heard that recording, we immediately accepted an invitation to make a research visit. What was different in South Africa was the recording itself. Here we had another bloop signature, the same mystery creature that we had recorded. We had the same low-frequency sonic blast. But here, it was what happened before the blast that was revealing. Here was a bloop call similar to the one we recorded. It was obviously the same kind of creature. And this time, there was dolphin chatter on the recording. Not surprising, dolphins are in these waters and they get stranded in these events as well. But here, there was communication, back and forth communication between our bloop creatures and the dolphins, which made us think, is it a dolphin? Is it some new species of dolphin? And from that point on, that's what we thought we were looking for.
Up to that point, we only had acoustic evidence. But physical evidence, that was the breakthrough that Dr. Dittmar gave us.
It's a gray white shark.
It's not the shark. It's what's in the shark.
It was a mess, and it smelled pretty terrible. There were parts that looked like they might have been from a dolphin, parts that looked like they're from a seal, but no seal or dolphin we'd ever encountered. And there were other body parts too. We had no idea what we were looking at, but we thought right away, jackpot. This was something new. This was a new species. There were puncture marks around the shark's gills and mouth, and I initially thought these might have been injuries sustained when it was gaffed to the side of the boat. But I probed one of them, and I found a stingray barb inside. Now, this could have come from a stingray defending itself. Sharks eat stingrays. Hammerheads do, tigers do, but not great whites. So I kept the barb. I thought it might be something I could publish in a journal or something. I just thought it was interesting. We got the body back to the lab, and the condition of the remains was poor. We recovered about 30% of the body, so it was gonna be difficult to piece together.
The first thing we did was to take DNA samples to try and establish the genetic makeup.
We started by looking at the rib cage, and it appeared to be hinged. A collapsible rib cage is a feature of marine mammals who have evolved to dive. The tail fluke was the best preserved, and it looked a lot like a manatee's. We wondered if maybe that's what this could be, some relic population or undiscovered relative of this animal. We took an x-ray. There were bones in the tail fluke. Manatees don't have that. So we're thinking, what on earth is this?
The skull was severely damaged. Half of it was missing, but one important piece that we did have was a partial forehead plate. This contained a hole that was not part of the damage. We presumed it was a blowhole. We made resin casts of the skull fragments and sent them to a forensic expert.
Then we looked at the pelvis. There were remains of leg bones. Seals have leg bones, but their thigh bones are short. We could tell that the ones in our specimen were long. So this thing is not a seal, it's not a manatee, and although it talks to dolphins, it's not a dolphin. At least not from what we were seeing. So what else on Earth would be smart enough to communicate with dolphins? Brian and I tried to make sense of the rest of the parts. We had found a bone. It wasn't part of this animal. It had markings along it, and at the top it had a little notch carved out. We had no idea what to make of this, so we set it aside for further study.
So I started working on the phalanges. Those are the bones that support the fin or flipper structure in a seal or a dolphin. It was clear that these bones couldn't be configured into either of those arrangements.
We found something else. This animal had been affected by the naval sonar.
The NOAA team was now certain the Navy was not only affecting whales with their tests, they were also affecting a new species. The creature's physiology gave deeper insights into its behavior. Although it was damaged in the shark attack, they discovered a large spleen.
Large spleens are common features to marine mammals. It stores oxygen during deep dives. It's like having a built-in scuba tank inside them. Every time we found something new, a dozen more questions would pop up. Dr. McCormick invited someone else to take a look. the South Africans were taking so long getting the permitting to get the material out of the country that Bryant flew him in.
My specialty is in biomechanics, how animals have adapted different means of locomotion. My name is Dr. Stephen Pearsall. When I got there, I thought, well, what the heck am I doing here? Because this is clearly a marine mammal. The tail looked like the tail on an animal that you find in the ocean. And it was only when we got the remains under the scanners that I realized that this was like no tail we had ever seen before.
Looking at the hip structure, Dr. Pearsall recognizes something strikingly familiar.
With humans, if you look at the top of your hips here, they have this high ridge. And these are called the iliac crests, and they're designed to support weight. I looked at this creature, and it had similar crests on its hips, and that didn't make any sense until I realized that we were looking at the scans the wrong way. We were looking at them this way, when in fact what we had to do is rotate them. That is when it became clear that this creature once walked on 2 legs. And there is only one animal that walks upright on 2 legs, that walks on 2 feet.
And if this thing once stood on 2 feet, we realized...
Hands. They were hands.
Becky's discovery that this creature had hands. The discovery that this creature once walked upright on land like us because it was one of us. That changed everything. That bone had been worked on. It had been carved by hand. At the top where the notch was, that was meant to hold something, and we found fibrous plant material wrapped around it, which would have been designed to hold it in place. And then I remembered the stingray barb. This thing fit perfectly in the top of the bone. This was a tool. All those tales of fish found with spears in them, all the fishermen stories of spears found in the open ocean, this is what made them. We have something that makes tools. This thing has figured out how to disarm a stingray, use its spine to kill fish. So they are intelligent hunters, but are they hunted? How would these creatures have evolved to survive alongside the most formidable predators in the ocean? The body was one of the most important anthropological finds, possibly one of the most important scientific discoveries in human history.
My name is Dr. Leanne Fisser. I'm a forensic anthropologist in the Department of Human Evolution. I reconstruct the appearance of an individual based on fragments of skull and other bones. A few characteristics immediately stood out. The skull had very large orbits, bigger than any fossil or modern human that I'd ever reconstructed. The eyes would be quite big, and large eyes are found in animals operating in low light. The next thing I noticed was evidence of a skull ridge. Such skull crests are found in some of our relatives, but not in modern humans. Apes have them, and they are also found in some of our early ancestors.
Scanning the reconstructed skull enabled Dr. Visser to map the inside of the brain cavity. She discovered that the parts which in humans correspond to sound interpretation were greatly enlarged.
The opening on the frontal skull fragment was connected to an extensive series of sinus cavities. The shape and features of the skull revealed to us. Just how elaborate the creature's acoustic capacities really were.
The concave shape in the front of the skull indicated that it had a melon, a specialized mass of fatty tissue that enables dolphins and other whales to echolocate. It wasn't a blowhole. This wasn't used for breathing. It was used to channel sound. The skull reconstruction proved it could do this, that this creature could echolocate. This was the creature that had made the sound. The calls had never been identified.
Echolocation, a form of biosonar. The ability to emit high-frequency sounds that bounce off objects and give the animal a mental map of its environment. Sound used to locate food. Sound used to communicate in the deep blue of the vast ocean.
We now had no doubt that this was the animal that had made the bloop. This was the same animal that was on the 1997 bloop recording. This was the same animal that was on the 2004 Washington State recording, and it was the same animal that was on the South African recording, the one that talked to the dolphins. We had just found a creature of fable. I mean, that's what we were looking at. All of us had been wanting to say it for days, probably weeks. But scientists aren't supposed to believe in fairy tales. And what we were looking at was a mermaid.
If the Beaufort footage is real, then it's not the one we took off the beach in Washington. That one was in no condition to be transported. I saw what those boys saw. I know what they reported to the Navy was accurate. How do you think people would respond if they knew we were killing an unknown species that was most likely the only surviving relative to humans? Look at how they continue to react to beached whales. If the public ever saw this creature, there would be an uproar.
So I asked myself, how could this thing stay hidden so long? Then you realize that the surface of the moon has been explored more than the deep oceans. And you look at the fact that even to this day, there are still large animals being discovered. There have been 2 new species of whales discovered in just the past decade. These are 30-foot, 40-foot long animals that have never been seen before, never been recorded. Giant animals found for the first time ever in just the past 10 years. So yeah, it's possible. It's still possible to stay hidden. We kept thinking back to the beaching that happened right here in Washington, that naval medical team. We had thought they were analyzing their tests on whales, but now we had a slightly different theory. We tracked down the kids that had made the original report. And the Navy had spent a lot of time with these kids. They had even visited them at home. And they had convinced the kids that what they had seen was actually a seal that had decomposed, and that's why it looked strange. The boy had drawn a picture of what he saw. Now, nobody outside of the scientists we worked with or the government officials that had confiscated our materials could have known what the skull reconstruction looked like. But this kid had a drawing of what he had seen. And it was a match. He had seen the same thing. And that's not all we saw. The boy's mom agreed to show it to us. They hadn't shown it to anybody. The Navy had not thought to check the kid's camera phone. Now, that's not the first time the military's gotten caught by a camera phone, but back then, most people didn't even have them. I doubt the investigating officer even bothered to check it. This kid had kept it. He'd kept it all that time.
In Europe, popular stories of mermaids began with Sir Christopher Columbus and other reputable sailors. However, Columbus's account of a sighting of manatees in 1493 could very well be the first recorded sighting of a mermaid. In 1610, in the harbor of St. John's, Newfoundland, Richard Whitbourne saw a strange creature that was beautiful and had blue streaks resembling hair and a hinder part that pointed like a broad hooked arrow. When it attempted to climb into his boat, one of his men struck it full blow on the head, whereby it fell off from them. He supposed that it was a mermaid. 2 years earlier, while aboard a ship near Norway, Henry Hudson reported that one of our company, looking overboard, saw a mermaid, as her back and breasts were like a woman's, her skin very white, and her tail like that of a porpoise, and speckled like a mackerel.
The accounts have been told by sailors the world over. The seafaring Greeks described them, as did the Vikings, as did the Chinese during their great period of maritime exploration. They are recorded in medieval manuscripts and even into the 19th century, when captains of whaling vessels spotted them swimming with pods of whales. Cultures from different continents, people that had no contact with one another, but all of them have stories describing the same mythic creature. Could it be these stories are more than myth? They were recorded in the logs of the voyages of both Christopher Columbus and Henry Hudson, who witnessed humanoid creatures with pale speckled bellies, dark blue backs, and paddle-shaped tails. Could these be accurate descriptions of what they saw? Could other historical evidence provide new insight, like these 16th century Italian drawings, once thought to be depictions of a human medical anomaly? These sketches may now tell a very different story. Even today, accounts still emerge, like this hastily shot video captured in 2005 off the Adriatic coast. This most recent sighting comes from deep-sea fishermen. The most ancient can be found in a desert left behind by a departed sea. These sandstone caves once looked out over a tidal bay some 30,000 years ago. The water has receded, but the memory of the people who lived there remains, recorded in ancient paintings that cover the cave walls. Archaeologists believe these may be among the oldest mythic images ever made by man. Are they the projected dreams of early fishermen, imagining themselves with tails, swimming out to catch fish with spears and nets? Or are they something else? Early humans fought savagely over hunting and fishing grounds. Force was used against rival tribes and against any other competitive threat to a valuable food source. Could that be what these paintings depict? Could these paintings be a record of mankind's conflict with creatures that are now relegated to myth? Did we drive them into extinction? Or did we drive them into hiding?
In recent years, the silver screen has been flooded with movies such as Aquaman.
4 years ago, I was basically unemployed.
The Little Mermaid.
You broke the rules. You went to the above world.
A man was drowning. I had to save him.
This obsession with humans has to stop.
I just want to know more about them. Ariel!
Percy Jackson.
The stories that I have told you about great gods and half-bloods, they are real.
Mrs. Jackson, things have changed. This is all developing a lot faster than we anticipated.
Grover, why is there half a goat in your pants?
So the important thing is not to panic.
Percy Jackson. We've been expecting you. The Master Ball has been stolen. That is your quest.
Remember what I taught you. You're gonna need to be brave now.
Avatar, I'm talking about the water version, the second one. And Black Panthers even had a whole feature of a whole world under the water.
Can be great leaders.
They have lost their protector. Now is our time to strike. Show them who we are.
Is there any evidence beyond folklore that corroborates these myths, lifting them to a greater level of historical fact rather than fiction? Why does Hollywood seem to have an obsession with showing us supposedly mythical beings? Is this all myth and fairy tales, or is something more sinister behind this? Let's begin our journey from Genesis chapter 6. The scripture tells us that the sons of the Most High, the Hebrew word is the Beni Ha Elohim, came into the earth and had relations of a sexual kind with the daughters of men. And the offspring that were produced as a result of this were called the Nephilim. And when we look into other books like the Book of Enoch, it further corroborates this story. Some say that the Book of Enoch was discovered because of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but as I've reiterated on this channel, the Book of Enoch has been around even before the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in the 1930s, and even before it was discovered by Europeans in the 19th century. This book existed in Ethiopia and has always been part of the Ethiopian canon. So it was not a lost book, it was a banned book, and for several reasons. So I'm quoting from the Book of Enoch the following statement. It says in the Book of Enoch, "And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. This passage follows the narrative where the Watchers, fallen angels, descend to earth, take human wives, and produce the Nephilim, who became violent giants. The phrase sin against animals has been interpreted in a few ways. Number one, genetic corruption or hybridization. An early idea of tampering with creation. Let me say that again. Number one, genetic corruption or hybridization, an early idea of tampering with creation. And so today when we see and hear of stories, top secret laboratories that are creating hybrid creatures behind the scenes, is this something new? Or is this really corroborating what Christ said in Matthew 24, where he said, just as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man? Did it come to pass in the days of Noah that these fallen ones took the genetics of fish and mingled them in some form of laboratory? Did they put these together and create mer people? Who knows? The other notion that comes from this is something called bestiality, which would be unnatural relations with the aquatic life in this particular scenario, where these beings mated with the aquatic life and thus produce this spawn, which would be the mer people. Okay, so those, I believe, are the two ways that this more than likely could have happened. If we go into the scriptures, we're told of a particular god which is worshipped by the Philistines in the Old Covenant. He goes by the name Dagon. And however, Dagon is not really described. What he looks like is not described. But we're going to put some images, and we're putting some images up here for you to see this Semitic deity and what he looked like. And as you can see, this creature is normally portrayed most times as half fish and half man. In fact, what we see is that the hat that the popes seem to be wearing seems to be a hat depicting a fish head. Anyway, let me leave that one alone. Could it be that they've known about these creatures for a long time and nobody has said anything? But let's go into Dagon. Dagon was a Philistine or West Semitic deity. His earliest references come as early as the 3rd millennium BCE in Mesopotamian texts. Dagon was originally a Mesopotamian Semitic god associated with grain and fertility. And some say not necessarily the sea, but when you think of fertility and you think of how fish produce prolifically, then it makes more sense that Dagon would be a sea god. And also the fact that the place that the Philistines were, which would be Ashdod and Gaza, as stated in the scriptures, was near the sea. And so if this is the case, it will make sense that they worshipped a god that was fish-like and able to produce in abundance. Now, if we go centuries later, we're going to find that this Semitic god seems to find himself in the Greek pantheon of gods, because the Greeks and the Romans were polytheistic in their beliefs. And in my personal opinion, the god Poseidon is either related to Dagon or is Dagon as the Greek god of the sea. Earliest references appear in the Mycenaean texts, the Linear B tablets around 1400 to 1200 BCE, where he's already recognized as a powerful deity, sometimes even more than Zeus. And this is covered in those Percy Jackson movies. Oops. Fully developed Olympian Poseidon myth emerges in the Archaic period around the 8th century BCE, as seen in Homer's epics. If you've ever heard the stories from Homer's Gilead or Iliad, if that, whatever it's called, you will find Poseidon portrayed right there, along with Medusa, along with Zeus and Hercules and all the others, which I believe in that mythology is speaking of the days of the Nephilim. It's astonishing to see that Dagon, when we finally find out what the scripture is telling us about Dagon, that Dagon is half fish and half man, and seems to be the Mesopotamian god that later becomes associated with the Greek god Poseidon. Some say they're not related, but personally, from my research, I believe they are. Now, some are positing that in the book of Enoch, there is a portion of scripture that says that women who became the consorts of the Nephilim become sirens. But if we go into the original Ge'ez, it doesn't really state that. And so let's look into this. It's in the English translation of the same book of Enoch, which has been translated from Ge'ez, okay, into English. So I believe this is mistranslation. R.H. Charles, 1912, cites that, and the women also of the angels who went astray shall become sirens. Okay? So they're using the word sirens, they're quoting from Greek mythology. However, I believe that the account in the Ethiopian books are more accurate and older as reference than them trying to switch into the Greek to try to understand the Ge'ez. Anyway, let's look at the next one. George H. Shode in 1882 cites this scripture as saying, it's slightly different in the way he phrases it. It says, and the women also of the children of men who went astray shall become sirens. But when we look at the Ethiopian Ge'ez manuscripts, please Ethiopians, if I'm not pronouncing the word properly, please correct me. Somebody let me know if it is Ge'ez. Some people say Ge'ez, but I believe it's Ge'ez. Ethiopian Ge'ez manuscripts says thus. It says, and the women also of the children of men became evil, and they corrupted themselves. I believe that is the correct translation, because we've got to understand what sirens are. A siren is supposedly a mythical creature coming from Greek myth, that is some kind of water spirit that gives off some kind of, I believe, sonic sensation from singing or whatever, a sound that hypnotizes people and would cause sailors of old to become shipwrecked because they'd be so focused on listening to the songs of sirens to the point where they would end up in the rocks and so on and so forth. And some would even be enticed because of some lustful thoughts and so on and so forth with such sirens. But anyway, let's move on. We need to ask ourselves a question. concerning this unknown marine creature that may exist in the sea. Could it be that when the Lord destroyed the world with the flood, the only Nephilim that survived were the ones who already lived in the water? Were they in the sea? And when the Bible tells us that before the flood there were giants, and then afterwards they continued to be giants, could it be that the ones in the sea started mating again with things on the land, and thus we ended up with giants again? I'm just positing something. I'm not saying that that's what happened. I'm just positing something for you to consider. Because I do believe something was going on in the marine kingdom when the flood took place. It is the largest place that covers this planet and is so unexplored, we don't have a clue what is going on there. There could very well be a whole evil empire lurking under the water. Not only is it that we've seen all of this, but we also need to understand in these modern days, there seems to be an upsurge in the veneration of said creatures, with an iconic celebrity who seems to worship a deity or a god called Oshun, who goes by the name of Beyonce Knowles.
Compared to the goddess Aphrodite in Greek mythology. And in many cultures, you could say some part of Oshun showing up. This love goddess is in practically almost every walk of life. And so there's a texture of that carries that Oshun energy. Yellow, gold, orange are some of her main colors. Some of the offerings for Oshun are oranges, honey, gold, sunflowers, cinnamon, mirrors, bells, brass, all of these nice things. Her feast day is the 8th of September.
I am the Nala, sister Naruba, Oshun Queen Sheba. I am the mother. Put me on game, on time, on gold chains, with my Oshun energy.
Oshun being a Nigerian god or goddess that she seems to worship. With the increased knowledge of marine spirits as targets for spiritual warfare in the West African church, and the popularity of such warfare being spread into the West by the African diaspora, can we really afford to ignore the research into the authenticity of such beings?